Okay, so let me begin with, now that the situation the world is in now with coming up, well, I don't know if you can say coming out of the pandemic, but still in the face of a global pandemic and with all the great resignation we've been hearing about of like many people quitting their jobs and all of this situation. From your experience, how do you see the corporate world right now, and where do you see it heading in the next 5 years, let's say?
That's a great question, Nabila. I'll tell you something. When we talk about the great resignation and we talk about millions of people leaving the job, I think we shouldn't talk about it as one number. I think we should break it into the individual pieces. And I think what we'll find as we break it down into the individual pieces is that the people who are leaving the workforce are not leaving because they don't want to work. I think they're just overworked, stressed out, and they just don't know how to have a job and balance the family and the kids. The uncertainty of are schools going to open? How do I deal with the COVID case at home? How do I quarantine? How do I go to a workplace where there's no uniform standards on masks or vaccines? So I think people just are stressed out, they're exhausted. And I think we should worry about this because people want to work, people love working, but I think we've created an environment based on all that I've said now that makes it almost impossible for people to continue working. Add to that, many of the jobs that people are quitting from are not high-paying jobs. I look at caregiving, I look at cleaning jobs. People are just saying these jobs treat you badly and they don't pay enough. So I think coming out of the pandemic, my hope is that we all sit down and ask ourselves to enable our way of life, to make sure we treat everybody as humans, to make sure that we worry about all of the difficulties that they're going through. What do we need to do to change the economic equation? I hope we do that, Nabila. I really hope.
You just raised a great question. What do we do? What, in practical terms, and again, based on your extensive experience, what can be done to create a more supportive corporate environment?
I think first we have to ask ourselves, the people who provide the backbone services to our economy. Our focus has always been at the top of the business pyramid. I think we'll worry about the essential worker, the hourly worker, the people who drive trucks, who do all of the backbone work. They don't have job flexibility. During COVID, they had to show up at work every day. They made our life possible, okay? I think we have to stop and say, do we pay them fairly? I don't mean pay them fairly for the job. Do we pay them fairly to allow them to have a family life? Can they afford to sustain any family life? If they have children, do they have childcare? Is it affordable? Is it available? Is it high quality? When schools shut down, what are they supposed to do? Do we give them time off to take care of aging parents? Can we give them predictability in shifts? Right now, there's no predictability. One day we tell them to come at 6, another day we tell them to come at 8. We just treat them like they're tools of the trade. I think we have to have this grand reckoning to say, how do we treat that essential worker with zero flexibility, paid very, enough to survive? How do we make sure that we look at them and say, how do we give them wages so they too can, have a decent life and climb up the ladder as opposed to always being stuck in the bottom? So I think the time has come for a different, and I speak as a person who believes in capitalism, who believes in, societies the way they exist, but I'm now seeing how much our essential workers have given to us through the pandemic.
Speaking again from your experience as a woman who rose incredibly high on the corporate ladder and in a culture which is similar to the culture of the Arab region, having been brought up in a culture that is similar to the culture in the Arab region, what advice can you give women of today who are leaders in their fields?
I think it all starts when you're a kid in home. Right. When I was a kid at home, it was like one foot on the brake, one foot on the accelerator, but the accelerator was heavier than the brake.
Okay.
Dream big. You can be anything you want to be. Make sure you study. We were encouraged to be educated as much as we were willing to study. We were not held back. We were held to the same high standards. We were given all the tutoring help at home as much as my brother was. And so I think it was a commitment to girls as much as it was to boys. And it was a support and encouragement of the girls as much as it was of the boys. So it starts there. So you build a foundation there. And while we were growing up in school, we were asked to be part of debating teams. We were asked to take part in extracurricular. So it was always, do more, read more, participate more, contribute more. So in many ways, it starts right there, Nabila. Because if you give girls hopes, dreams, aspirations, encouragement, and push, they too will move forward. And the other thing that my father said to me as a kid, and I remember this, never put your hand out and look to somebody else to give you money. Stand on your own 2 feet. And what we're doing for you through your education is investing in you so that you can have the power of the purse yourself. Okay? Because at the end of the day, families are messy, families are fragile. Nobody knows when, if a family can blow up and a woman might be left to fend for herself. True. Right? And very often she has a responsibility for the kids. And so my parents were very keen that, we stood on our own 2 feet. And then as you move along, the role of mentors was very important in my life. I'm a product of great mentoring. People have supported me, promoted me. I did my part. I treated mentors with great respect and I performed. But at the end of the day, I am who I am because of all the mentors in my life. Men, all of them were men who stepped up and said, I like what I see in this person. How can I push her forward? I still keep in touch with almost all of them who are alive, of course.
Nice. Okay. Again, I'm going to switch gears and go into sustainability. Now there's a heightened awareness, and as I'm sure you know, that everyone's talking about environmentally friendly practices, how to be more sustainable. And this is something you've had already worked on in your time with PepsiCo. So can you tell me more about the challenges in this aspect, especially when it comes to balancing the corporate bottom line with, doing good?
It should not be looked at as corporate bottom line and doing good. I'll tell you why, because what we should not do is say, hey, I'm going to take all the water, it's free, who cares? Somebody's going to pay for it, either as a societal cost or governments. So I think that companies should view themselves as being rooted in societies. You cannot separate societies from companies, okay? Because you are producing for the community and the society, and in return, they're giving you a license to operate. So if you look at your role as making sure that you don't do any harm to society, okay, then you'll approach it very differently. And CEOs who've experienced issues in their growing up will be more attuned to these issues than CEOs who have not. Example, I grew up in a water distressed area. So I feel the water distress issue acutely. Okay. I constantly watch consumer behavior. When I was in Saudi, I remember Riyadh versus Jeddah. In Riyadh, every street was clean. In Jeddah, I saw plastic bottles on the side of the road. And I said to myself, oh, no, it cannot be, because Riyadh had no plastic bottles on the side. So, when you see the plastic bottles, it feels like a blight. And you say to yourself, what can be done to recycle those plastic bottles? Look, I'm all for convenience, but convenience should not be just a throwaway culture. Convenience can be a closed loop culture. So I think what we have to do is educate the consumer to change their habits and educate companies to change their offerings. So it's a push and a pull. And so I think that sustainability is here to stay. I would argue it has to be amped up even more than it is right now. And it can't be done only by companies. It can't be done only by consumers. It's the two coming together. Consumer behavior change, corporate behavior change.
And in that vein, what roles do the governments of countries play in pushing both corporates and consumers towards that change? And how can they work
Sensible
together?
policy, sensible policy. Don't overreach. Sensible policy with appropriate timeframes, measurable metrics, incentives for technologies, breakthrough technologies. Understanding where government can play a role versus companies. For example, garbage collection, setting up wastewater systems, making sure water is available, things like that. All of those governments should be playing a role because that's their role. All right. Companies in turn should work with governments, should work with NGOs, should work with community organizations to say, how do we make it all work? I remember one particular example, Nabila, in the south of India, in a town, PepsiCo India had started an initiative in a village called Pammal on waste to wealth. So in the town, they would collect all the waste and separate it out into recyclable versus organic. And they put the organic waste in big bins with earthworms, which in a week would convert the organic waste to fertilizers. And that would then get used back in the town to fertilize gardens to grow vegetables for the town. But you see, I think if we put our creativity and our ingenuity to work, we will be able to create closed loop systems, better rainwater harvesting, more efficient use of water. Again, if countries have too much water, do what you want. Work on something else. I think each country should work on issues that are current for them and bring the creativity of everybody in the city and town and the world to help them.
I hope that happens.
I hope so.
My final question is about your book, My Life in Full, and the Emirates Festival books. What message you're hoping to bring to the festival, and what messages are you highlighting in your book?
This book is, a book that should give young women, should give young family builders, should give men, a roadmap for men in power, a roadmap to enable women to rise. For young family builders and women to say, there is a way to balance work and family and to keep a job and to rise. So this is more of an inspirational, aspirational book. I hope people read it that way as opposed to it's another memoir. It's never intended to be another memoir. It's intended to be a story of the arc of somebody's life. And from that, you derive the lessons and a roadmap to saying, how can it be done?
Nice.
And the answer is, it can be done.
That gives us hope again.
You bet.
Thank you so much for your time, Indra. I don't have any more questions. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I look forward to seeing you at the Emirati Lit Fest.
For sure. Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you.
Same here.
Bye-bye, Nabila. Happy New Year.